pod bay doors, please, Hal.
The pod bay doors are open. Welcome once again. I'm your host, Jerry Dean Roberts of ArmchairCinema.com and also ArmchairOscars.com. Seated here with a man whose eyes are as bleary as mine from watching so many movies, the critic, dare I say legend, TalkMovieMe.com, Mr. Doug Heller. How the heck are you today, sir?
Screener season isn't a whole lot different from the rest of the year for me, so...
Yeah, but we have to cram so many movies into one.
Yeah, it's hard to do. It's hard to do, but I think I've been doing pretty good.
So I want to start with this. I probably watched more movies this year than I probably have in several years. And one thing is, it's been an escape, kind of from what's going on, because I frequent Facebook, and one thing that comes up constantly is people telling me how horrible and terrible and awful 2021 was, and I'm thinking, well, compared to the year before it, not really, because
it wasn't
it's
a
been
lot different.
kind of. But I mean, we didn't have a quarantine. We didn't have, the shock of the outbreak. We didn't have all that.
We didn't have all the things that we should have had that would have been able to contain this and actually, get us back to normal instead of.
We didn't have. Now. Well, we didn't have, hurricanes on the East Coast and fires on the West Coast. It wasn't as biblical. And
oh no, yeah, we did.
Did we?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. There were still terrible fires all over the place, and I know Australia was burning for a few months at the beginning of the year.
Was it?
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of nervous now because you're sitting here and you're thinking because to me 2021 just felt like the hangover from what's going on with the 2020.
If 2020 was the lost year,
yeah,
2021 was the year.
Yeah,
because I barely even realized that it happened. Like 2021 was over before it started.
Yeah, it was kind of strange. It's like because we're sitting here at the end of 2021, the beginning of 2022, and it's like you're wondering, is this the eye of the hurricane? Are you sitting here waiting for the next wave to happen? And the Omicron is not giving you any.
Didn't the Spanish flu go in 4 or 5 waves over 3-4 years?
Probably, yeah. So, but anyway, we do the thing in times good and bad. We do the thing that we always do. We go to the movies, and that's what we do.
Well,
and that's what we're here to talk about.
In this case, regrettably for me, it is. Stay in to the movies.
Right.
I have not been to a movie theater since March of 2020, early March of 2020.
I actually started going back.
Yeah, I won't do it. I don't think it's safe, and the migraines that I usually have get way worse if I have to be in a mask for a long period of time.
Yeah.
So
that's understandable.
Sitting there 2 hours, my head would just cave in. I couldn't do it.
I did. I went to the movies a couple of times. I spaced it out, but I did. We finally, this past summer, went to see Black Widow, which...
we waited for that to hit Disney Plus for free.
Which if you've seen Black Widow, you know this. It's about 5 years out of. It's about 5 years too late. It was about 5 years too late.
Well,
it's okay.
Everybody that saw it when it first came out was like, "Yeah, we should have had this
in 2016."
Yeah.
That's what I wrote in my review. It's it's a good movie. It's a good movie. It just feels like it's 5 years out of date.
Because the way that they set up her family and everything, there could have been a Black Widow franchise in there. Mm-hmm. And, they brought in the Florence Pugh character into the Hawkeye show. And
here's the problem with adding Florence Pugh. When you add Florence Pugh to anything, she kind of wipes everybody else off the map because she's such a phenomenal actress. You're kind of only watching her.
Well, and that's why having her with ScarJo was a good idea, because the both of them are attention grabbers, because they're both very good.
Right.
Both of them are Oscar-nominated actresses.
It's just Florence Pugh is better at emoting, and Scarlett Johansson is not.
True. But her character in Marvel does not emote.
Right.
Florence Pugh. But anyway, I liked Black Widow, but yeah, it was out of date. I really liked Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
I did too, but I'll tell you, the family drama didn't work for me. The family drama in Black Widow actually had a little more punch to it than this does. Actually, it was the action scenes. It was the earlier stuff in Legend of Shang-Chi that I liked better. It's the back half that I think is drawn out.
The last act it just kind of turns into a regular comic book movie.
Mm-hmm.
And, but...
And I'm going to tell you, if Florence Pugh is the golden ticket to Black Widow, for Shang-Chi, it's Awkwafina.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely adore Awkwafina.
Me too.
She is so funny.
She was great as the dragon in Raya and the Last Dragon. I just watched that one.
She was.
She was a lot of fun in that. But
Shang-Chi just seemed it was good. It was good. It was just not. It was not great.
No. But what was Spider-Man No Way Home.
Was Spider-Man. Good gravy.
Wow.
Here's the funny thing.
The scenes with Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, and Tobey Maguire were some of my favorite scenes in movie history. Like the way that they interacted with each other was beautiful.
Yeah.
Because they were all their own Peters, but they were still each other as well. And it was a really awesome thing to see.
I saw this on Christmas Day. This is what happened with me. I went to this movie without really seeing a trailer. So the only character that I knew that came into this from the other series was Dr. Octopus, was the Alfred Molina character. That was the only one I knew.
See, I didn't watch too many trailers or anything, but I still wound up seeing casting lists and seeing a few stills here and there. So I knew that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield were in it and were in the final confrontation because I saw them together in a still.
I didn't.
I saw that Jamie Foxx had been cast. Like there was talk of Jamie Foxx and Willem Dafoe and several others coming back. I didn't know that, was it Rhys Ifans? I didn't know he was going to come back as Dr. Connors. That was cool.
Or, what's his name, as Sandman.
Yeah, I didn't know that Thomas Hayden Church was going to show up
Thomas Hayden Church, yeah.
Marco either.
Well, I didn't know any of this, so this was a shock to me while I was sitting there watching it. And so all of a sudden, Green Goblin comes out, and I'm thinking, okay, well, is it Willem Dafoe? Yeah, it's Willem Dafoe.
Oh yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Electro comes into this, and I'm thinking, okay, if they're throwing all of these characters in there, I'm wondering if there's going to be a Spider-Man, because you notice they waited a little bit to do that.
They waited like half the movie to bring them in.
They waited like half the movie to bring them in, and then all of a sudden it opens and Spider-Man comes out of the portal, and I'm thinking, okay, now who is this? And it's Andrew Garfield. There was applause in my theater.
Mm-hmm.
When that happened.
I saw it at a drive-in, so
yeah. But there was applause. There was applause when he took his mask off. And then the other one steps out, and it's he comes out of this shadow, and it's Tobey Maguire, and there's a roar from the theater. I miss that.
You know
That's what I miss going to the theater.
I do too, and I miss a lot of things of it, and I will be exponentially happier when I get to go back and experience it.
Yeah.
But what was I going to say? Got thrown off by theater talk.
I like the fact that they found a way to not bring in, but at least mention Miles from the Spider-Verse. They didn't bring him into the story, but they found a way to at least acknowledge that exists.
Right, and because the multiverse is now a thing,
mm-hmm.
and they're going to be dealing with it as they did in Loki, Spider-Man No Way Home, and it's Doctor Strange. And the Multiverse of Madness, which I really wonder who's going to show up in that thing. I mean, I thought it would be hilarious. You know how they're doing like the Flashpoint thing, and they've got Michael Keaton Batman and several other people coming back from the other franchises. I thought it would be hilarious if in Doctor Strange Michael Keaton shows up as Batman.
No.
It could never happen, but wouldn't that be the funniest thing you could imagine? Like, why am I here? It would finally be the movie DC Marvel crossover that they used to do in the books. That they did every now and again in the books, and that would.
But not something goofy like that one graphic novel where they had the Green Lantern meet the characters from Star Trek. It just got strange.
You know what the funny thing is? That actually would work in the continuity.
It actually would work, yeah. But I was so happy for this film because it managed to finish off. It managed to close the door on a lot of these characters, give them an arc, so to speak, because the individual films that they were in, a lot of them didn't work. And they abandoned the Amazing Spider-Man before they really abandoned the Amazing Spider-Man before it really got started because Amazing Spider-Man 2 was so bad.
I actually liked Amazing Spider-Man 2.
It was messy.
Well,
it was messy.
I liked those Amazing Spider-Man movies like quite a bit.
I liked the first one.
I liked Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. Now everybody's like, "Oh, why didn't they just keep Andrew Garfield?" It's because your dumbasses didn't show up for the second movie and they canceled.
There you go.
That's
there
you go. And I saw something. I don't know if it's a rumor, but I saw something that had said that Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 4 is now back in development.
Oh, God.
That they're actually going to go back and give it, because now that they've introduced the idea that they are doing what they're doing elsewhere, they could have movies with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield running synonymously with the stuff with Tom Holland and not have them overlap at all and not have it be confusing because they've established that they are alive and in different universes.
Or they could break open this this wall they've had with the X-Men and finally bring them over.
That will happen too. I wouldn't doubt. Hugh Jackman said he would come back to
get to this. If you haven't figured out, is our year-end roundup. What's that?
I don't. You froze, so I don't know if you were talking
over
me or not. But we'll figure that out in post.
Hey, maybe they'll fix it in post.
Yeah.
This year has been very strange. It's not a great year for movies. I don't have a number one generally. because everything has been it's really good, but
I have some prospects for
mm,
a number one. Um, uh, I think the Japanese film that's being put in for the Academy Awards
mm,
as Japan's official entry, Drive My Car,
mm.
might actually end up being my number one. It's
Oh,
three
really?
hours
Yeah, I
long.
haven't seen that one
It's
yet.
3 hours long.
Of course it is.
It's in Japanese, and it's basically a human drama that's character based. There's no action in it whatsoever,
Mm,
and it's wonderful. It's
yeah,
absolutely captivating the way, like the first half hour seems like a prologue that doesn't connect to the rest of the movie until the
yeah,
last half hour,
yeah.
but it's hanging over the whole movie. It's a stage director, an
Mm,
actor who's married to a playwright, and he knows she's cheating on him and has been for years, but they have a balance. And he comes home on a night they were going to talk about their relationship,
mm,
and she died of a cerebral hemorrhage on the floor
yeah,
before they ever got a chance to talk about anything.
yeah.
So her death and her specter and his finding out about all this kind of lingers over this movie that's basically like 3 years later, 5 years later. It's really, really good. I highly recommend it.
A 3 hour Japanese movie with ghosts. I've never heard of anything
There's
like
no
that.
ghosts. There's no ghost. There's no ghosts. It's not a ghost story. The idea of her lingers over the
The
story.
idea,
The
yeah,
she is not a
the
specter.
specter that lingers. Yeah.
She is not a ghost.
Mm,
But that one is a good contender. I think Power of the Dog might be a good contender for a best movie of the year. Not maybe a favorite, but a best
mm.
of. Um, I also really like The Worst Person in the World. That was a
Yeah, I didn't see that one
that
either.
was a 2.5 hour Finnish character drama.
Let's talk about a movie that is troubling a lot of people, but not me.
Hmm.
And that's Spencer.
I liked Spencer.
I did too, because I love this director, Pablo Larraín's, who's
Very.
he went staticky.
Is that better?
Yes,
He's an odd director.
he is, and I like that about him. He made
Yeah,
Jackie,
which was
that film with Natalie
phenomenal.
Portman a couple of years ago. Um, he also made a film I don't think you saw called Emma,
No, but
which
I
is
did wind
essentially
up getting a DVD of it.
a heist movie about a woman trying to get her kid back. She's taken after the kid is taken away by social services.
Hmm.
Um, but Spencer, people are having a lot of trouble with this movie.
Really? I
Yeah,
Everything I saw of it was really positive.
it opens by telling you this is a true fairy tale.
Right.
Basically opens by telling you that none of this is really true, except for the fact that Diana actually did go to the country estate of the royal family
Right.
while she was having trouble.
The literal event happened,
Hmm.
but what happens in the movie is all speculative as to what could have been going on inside. It's not like based on some kind of an accurate accounting of what was going on. It's a
And I
fictionalized
appreciate that.
idea. Oh yeah, yeah, me too.
I appreciate that approach
It's
because
not a it's not a biopic at all.
let me put it this way: there are scenes in this movie that reminded me of The Shining.
There were some really really cool. There was some really cool camera stuff that really did remind me of Kubrick.
Of Kubrick, yeah.
Like even more so even I kind of felt Clockwork Orangey
Mm,
in some of the places. Some of the weird camera moves, like when she's dancing down that
mm,
hallway,
yeah.
that kind of looked like a cut scene from Russian Ark.
Hmm.
Uh, if there
Yeah.
had been cut scenes from Russian Ark, um, but that's done almost like how he did some camera moves in Eyes Wide Shut,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, with some fisheye bowing and stuff like that. Like he was like Kubrick would have killed to have the technology to make that 360 shot.
I think had he lived, he would have made a movie like this.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
The great thing about Pablo Larraín is he's very good at being able to show you, and he's not afraid to show you and literalize emotional states
Right.
of how a person is feeling or thinking. And if you saw Jackie,
Mm-hmm.
that movie was all over that movie,
Mm-hmm.
because that movie opens with um, an orchestral musical swelling that sounds like a train
All right.
about to hit this woman. Um, and this movie is no different, because you are inside Diana's head the whole time.
Right.
And there are
Nothing
moments,
happens without her there.
yeah,
She's
she's
on
never
screen
seen.
the
It's Kristen
entire time.
Stewart.
Yeah.
I've never been
Really,
much on Kristen Stewart,
really, really good here.
but a really good performance.
Yeah.
I actually believed that she was this
Mm-hmm.
person. She was Diana. And just this weird idea of, her trying this personal identity, what's going on in her life, who she's supposed to be as opposed to who she really wants to be, and kind of being the bird in a gilded cage.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he visualizes that beautifully.
Yeah.
This might be my favorite film of the year
I could see
if I were
that.
forced to choose.
I
Yeah,
could see that.
but a
Because
lot of people are having trouble with
I think
this.
wasn't Jackie your favorite film of the year in 18?
16.
16.
No, it wasn't my favorite.
It was pretty high up
I don't
there.
remember. It was pretty high up there because I just love his work. I do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's move on to another biography. This one I had slightly more trouble with, and that's Being the Ricardos.
I thought you loved this one.
I love this one, except I have a very hard time with the ending.
Okay.
This is, of course, the story of. It's. I love this approach, by the way, because they did this in Spencer. It's a week in the life.
Right.
It's not trying to go womb to tomb. It's absolutely just trying to deal with,
This one specific
six,
situation.
right, in one terrible week when their Lucy and Desi are trying to deal with a script that is not working. Meanwhile, she is Walter Winchell has called her a communist, and it is looking to decimate her career and the entire show, and therefore the careers of everyone around her.
That
And she also has
and she's pregnant.
dealing with Desi's, and she's pregnant, and also dealing with Desi's
Philandering.
tomcatting. And where I went into this movie having a little trouble was Javier Bardem, because when I saw him, first of all, the first thing that clicked on in my brain was he doesn't look one single thing
Not
like
one
Desi
iota.
Arnaz. But
Mm-hmm.
as soon as he started to speak,
Yep.
I thought he's got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for the rest of the movie, I was not looking at Javier Bardem.
Mm-mm.
He's got this accent
I gotta
down perfectly.
I gotta hand it to Nicole Kidman too. Like
I was just about to say that,
she
because
plays a damn good Lucille Ball.
she does.
Because when they
Not not an easy part to play.
no, because I mean, there's probably a lot of temptation to go always with the show persona
Mhm. Yeah,
as
not with the real
Lucy,
persona.
but when they are shooting and you get to see them rehearsing and in the lines in the on the show and everything, dead on vocal
Mhm.
impression of Lucy's wah and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. I was very impressed, and when she was not doing the performance Lucy,
Mhm.
she stayed Lucy to me. Like the performances are what anchor this movie. It's not the screenplay like it probably should have been because it's an Aaron Sorkin.
I am really glad Aaron Sorkin is at the head of this, because this is not the first thing you would think of when you think of Aaron Sorkin.
No.
I like the fact that he's doing this, and I like the fact that he's uh, that his dialogue comes into this. What I like about Nicole Kidman is that the vocal intonation that she adds to Lucy is just on the edge of where you can start to hear the cigarettes affecting her voice.
Mm-hmm.
It's not prominent as it would be later when she did the Lucy show, but you can just start to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like right on the edge, and it's consistent all through the film. I like the fact that they don't make Lucy into a stone cold bitch,
Oh yeah.
but they also don't make her a pushover either.
Mm-mm.
They deal with one thing I love, is that they deal with this rumor that she was at odds with Vivian Vance.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a rumor that Lucy wanted her to stay overweight so that she wouldn't upstage her. And in the film, she's on a diet, and she tells her, when women see you on the show, they want to see themselves.
Right.
It's not mean-spirited, but it's not
She's saying do it for
complimentary
the
either.
sake of the show, like
Mhm.
sacrifice your own self-image for the sake of the character.
Right.
Um, which
It's backhanded.
I both understand and would not really want to have.
Right. It's very backhanded.
Yeah.
But I think the performance that's going to get lost in this is J.K. Simmons
He was so much fun.
as William Frawley. He's so good. He has a great line in this movie. He says, let's go get a drink. And she says, 10 in the morning. He says, well, it's 10:15 somewhere. He is so good in this movie. And he's the one that's going to be forgotten. He's the one that's going to be forgotten. But I love the fact that they build the relationship with Lucy and Desi not as just problematic. They actually do build a loving relationship that is strained by the fact that she knows that he's cheating on her.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a scene in the movie where you see why you would think that. Because, and this is going to sound strange, but there's a scene where he's doing Babalu.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got the drum.
Yeah.
The rhythm of the drum as he's playing it, and they cut to the girls watching it, is very sexual.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little like when Elvis would shake his hips.
Right.
It's a very sexual rhythm. You understand why these women were attracted to him
Mm-hmm.
and to his style and all of that stuff. So you understand where it's coming from. What I like is that it doesn't generally drop into the film as much as you might think it would.
Right.
Until the ending.
Right.
The ending bothers me because the whole crux of the end of this movie is, will they drop the story, or will she be deemed as a communist? And Desi does a very good job of putting out the fire, essentially,
Mm-hmm.
by introducing her to telling the audience what the story is, and then introducing her. They're celebrating it, and then all of a sudden she brings up his cheating.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it felt like a left turn. That was... I understand why she did it. It just seemed to come at a point that because this is the last scene in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then they tell you that they got divorced in 1960.
Right. Well, so I think this bothers you because you're not an actor.
Possibly.
And the way I understood it, they had sorted the script difficulties. They had a plan for the script and what to do with that on stage. The communist thing was resolved.
Mm-hmm.
They had worked in something about their pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
And
against network.
Yes. Well,
executives.
That's I actually really love that whole...
I do too.
Concept.
I do too.
The whole real story is just fantastic. Mm-hmm. But there's still that last thing
mm-hmm.
that would stay in her mind,
mm-hmm.
and it would not let her give the performance she knew she needed to give, because
mm-hmm.
there was still that lingering doubt. So the high pressure of the script difficulty is resolved. The high pressure of the communism thing is resolved. But if she still has that, she won't be able to give herself to the production. And
mm-hmm.
it's even hard for her after that, because she was going to do her alternate beginning to the scene, but when he said, "Lucy, I'm home," all of the betrayal just kind of just smacked her right then and there. And so she didn't do her version. They went right in and did the written version, only spruced up the way that she had done it in rehearsal.
Right.
And she didn't want her real feelings interfering with her acting.
Yeah.
Feeling. So she had to separate Lucille Ball and Lucille Arnaz. And she couldn't do that if there was something still lingering.
That's true. It's just, in terms of the tone of the scene, it felt a little off. I know they had to add it in there, but for me, I was like, wait a minute. I was like he was. I was like, what? I completely understand what you're saying. It just, narrative-wise, it just felt a little strange, especially since that's the last scene in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
What I do like is how they deal with Lucy's creativity. Because there's a scene in here that is absolutely brilliant. When they're planning the shows to come, and somebody says, because they've got the names on the board,
mm-hmm.
they got the titles on the board, and it says, one of them says, Lucy goes to Italy. And Desi says, well, why does she go to Italy? There is a close-up on Nicole Kidman's face. And all of a sudden, she starts creating
mm-hmm.
that famous scene with the wine, with the grapes.
Uh-huh.
I love that. I love that. It's like it comes to her automatically. It's like, okay, and she starts putting it together in her mind.
Right.
As it turns out.
She really was a comedy genius. She was marvelous and just incredibly astute, very well educated. She knew what was going on. I love Lucy.
Well, let's talk about a movie I didn't like so much. Did you see The Eyes of Tammy Faye?
I did.
I I really like Jessica Chastain in this, but
Yeah.
I liked her a lot more than the movie.
The movie's odd.
It is. It
Um,
is. It's much more conventional than something like Being the Ricardos.
yeah, and it doesn't really give you an insight into Tammy Faye's mind during all of this. It just seems she just kind of
It
rolls
seems
along with it, and
it seems to be ticking off a lot of moments.
yeah. And instead of giving us something that we could connect with emotionally, all you're really
Mhm.
connecting is if you remembered seeing that happen on the news or not.
Right. Well, I come from
Which
a
I
different
vaguely
place.
remember.
I come from a different place because back in 2000 there was a documentary
With the
called
same
The Eyes
name.
of Tammy
Yeah.
Faye with the same name. That documentary was so um, that documentary was enough to change the public's perception of who Tammy Faye was.
I didn't get to see that. Heard it
Because
was good
what
though.
this was a woman with, too much makeup, a ridiculous voice, a ridiculous husband, a
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous show. That documentary really put in the public's mind who she was as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
So when you've seen that, and then you come to this feels like an imitation.
Oh,
It feels by the numbers.
I can see that.
Um, I really liked Jessica Chastain, but the problem was that a lot of what was going on was just like you say. It was just I've seen it on the news. I've seen this. I know this part already.
And for the main character, in a lot of the things that happened with Jim Baker, she was kind of
Mhm.
ancillary.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so she kind of drops out of her own movie for a little while. And it's a little
And what
odd.
happens with him? What happens with them? With Heritage USA, Jessica Hahn, and all of that other stuff. When all of that stuff drops, you're like, okay, I know all this.
Mm-hmm.
Show me something I didn't know. One thing I wanted from the movie is there's a scene where she goes to this conference with all of these ministers because Pat Robertson's there,
Mm-hmm.
Jerry Falwell's there, um, and she starts to have a kind of a debate with Falwell because Falwell is anti-gay,
In the
and he starts
extreme.
talking in the extreme. He starts talking about the liberal agenda and all of this. And Tammy is against that.
She's like she has no concept of hating somebody in
For who
general.
they
Like
are.
in yeah. Um, you can probably blame that on her Minnesota upbringing,
Mm.
but
Oh, she's got the accent down.
oh boy, does she! You know what the funniest thing for me was? Her Minnesotan accent solidified for me that Jessica Chastain should be the actress to play Dolly Parton in a biopic.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I buy it. I buy it. But when they're talking about this, I kept thinking, okay, that's the meat. That's the part of the movie that I'm interested in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care about Heritage USA. I don't care about the PTL and all that stuff. I'm interested in that because she went to war with these guys.
She did, and that's the more interesting story than
Right.
a birth to celebrity death,
Mhm.
or death of her celebrity. She's still alive, isn't she?
Right. No,
No,
she
she
died
isn't.
in 2007.
Oh, I forgot she died. Um, but I, that's where your story is. Instead of seeing from when she grew up in Minnesota all the way up to the fall of
Her mother's
everything.
terrible.
Oh,
Her mother's horrible.
oh yeah. Um, that would have been a much more interesting, like her having these inclusive ideas
Yeah.
for religion, for Christianity, and for that whole fundamentalist movement. Um, that would have
The
been
alt-right before it was called the alt-right.
well, yeah. So I did think that she did a very good job in the role, but
Mhm.
ultimately I think the movie is going to get a nomination for her
Mhm.
and potentially a supporting nod for Andrew Garfield as Jim Baker. Um,
No, I think actually, if I had to guess, I would say she's going to be the one nomination that this film gets.
you think
Yeah,
kind of
I
like
think I think that's it.
I Tanya, which actually should have gotten more.
Well, I got two. That
Two,
got two
yeah.
nominations.
But I
Um,
think Andrew Garfield is going to walk out of this year with at least one more Best Actor nomination, probably for Tick Tick
it's in every
Boom.
third movie this
I
year.
know. I mean, it's just odds. I mean, and you know, Tick Tick
It's
Boom was
okay. I
okay.
just
Yeah, it was
Yeah, Tick
okay.
Tick Boom was fine. I'm not a fan of Rent,
Me
but Tick
either.
Tick Boom was fine. I enjoyed it. I liked what it had to say. I wish it had a little more meat on it.
Yeah,
It was fine.
I had trouble visually
Mhm.
with it because I love Lin Manuel Miranda. His
Who's everywhere
as a
right now.
musician,
God.
his writing style, his acting. I like him as a filmmaker for his debut.
Mhm.
It looks like it's the senior project for an NYU graduate.
It does.
It's
It
all
does.
with the camera moves and stuff that you think when you're young and you're trying to say how you envision the movie that you want to make. There's all sorts of camera moves and all stuff. It's all very active and everything. He doesn't really let you.
Doesn't let you breathe.
Yeah, and the Andrew Garfield character is kind of nonstop,
Yeah.
but
But you
the
do feel for him.
you do, and he's good in it, but visually it just didn't slow down enough to
Mhm.
capture those quieter emotional bits.
Mhm.
So there wasn't enough pull into his character to say, yes, that's a Best Actor nomination right there.
Mhm.
It will be just because it's Lin Manuel Miranda.
I don't know if any of the music can be nominated.
Well, because
The
I
score, obviously,
yeah
but I don't know if any of the songs were original. But I watched the film, I enjoyed it, and then I kind of forgot about it.
yeah. The
I
only
watched it
reason
on
I
a day.
remembered it is because the sweatshirt that Netflix sent with it was really comfortable.
Oh God, the boxes we got this year from
Oh,
Netflix. We got these huge boxes of stuff.
just like
We got these.
5 pound books.
Yeah,
And although you didn't get it, when I got The Lost Daughter, I got not only did I
yeah.
get the movie, but I got the
Hmm.
novel and I got a bottle of wine
I got the
and a
novel. I did not
poster.
get the bottle of wine.
Did you get the
Yeah, I
poster?
did not get the bottle of wine.
Did you get the
Well, here's
poster?
the
I got
funny
the
thing. I
poster.
got the DVD.
Mm-hmm.
I got everything, and then I got the DVD later. So I got the huge box, but the DVD wasn't in it, and I got the DVD later. I don't know what the
Yeah,
deal with that was.
that's the same. That happened to me too. It's like you send me all this stuff, but you didn't send me the movie. So what the hell am I supposed to do now?
Well, let's talk about The Lost Daughter because this is
Yeah,
again another movie that's troubling people. I really get what it's about. The execution of it is troubling.
I watched it once. It wasn't especially engaging to
Mm.
me. I wanted it to be because I love
Yeah,
Olivia Colman,
yeah.
and uh, when the OFCS nominations come out and the Oscar nominations and everything, when it gets nominated for a bunch of awards, and it will be
Not
nominated.
if.
Yeah, when.
Yeah,
Olivia
when.
Colman is definitely getting nominated. The movie will almost.
I'm not going to say the same of Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, no,
I'm not going to say
no,
the same of Maggie
no.
Gyllenhaal.
I don't think she's going to get nominated, but I think the movie will still get nominated for Best Picture.
You think so?
I think so.
It's about a
It
woman
has no
who comes
chance,
to.
but
If it comes to, it's about this woman who comes to a Greek island, basically for a little quiet time, and she is basically accosted by this gigantic Italian family, and
from the Bronx.
they're very from the Bronx,
and they're very
they're
New
very
York. They're very New
they're very
York.
New York. They're very loud.
Mm-hmm.
They're very rude. That scene where she goes to the movie theater and she's just sitting there trying to watch the movie. I've been there.
Oh yeah,
I've been there. But she's not a nice. She's not a nice, genial person.
no.
And I like that about her. I like that they've developed this.
She is a
that there's
really,
a character that's
really bristly person.
I don't mind that. I don't mind that at all
either,
because
but
I sat there and I thought this is a character who's got a lot of she's got a lot of weight on her.
mm-hmm.
And the only problem that I have with the movie is this exhaustive amount of flashbacks to tell us why. And
yeah, there's the story of her youth is a pretty compelling story. That could have been a
but
movie.
it goes on. But it goes on too long. It's like it goes on way too long. It's like because there's a woman on among this family who has a cheating husband and who also has a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And we start getting flashbacks to her and her kids. And she's not a good mother.
Oh, she's a terrible.
She's not your. She's a terrible mother. Which that's interesting because I've not seen that. I've not seen really terrible mothers who are not murderers.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are just bad at parenthood.
Horribly negligent and abusive and everything. She loved her kids, but she really didn't want them.
You know, the one thing I love about this movie probably more than anything else is that it portrays the attitudes of children as being difficult,
mm-hmm.
fussy, aggravating. How many movies do you see that do that?
It gives you the realer side of parenting.
Right.
And yeah, you know what? There's days where you want your kid to disappear for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Every parent feels that at some point.
Yeah. Doesn't make you a bad parent. It's just you're a human being.
She loved her kids, missed her kids when she was away from them.
Mm-hmm.
But genuinely could have lived life without them.
Yeah.
She could have picked up and walked away from husband and children, never looked back, and never probably cared.
I was engaged with what was going on, but I was always at odds with this film. There's a tone to this film that feels very bristly. It feels very prickly. It's hard to really wrap your arms around it.
Right, and it feels like there's a maliciousness that is kind of just about to get there, but it never really starts.
Mm-hmm.
And it keeps promising to turn into some kind of a psychological thriller.
It's building to something that never quite gets
to. Exactly. It never goes in the direction in which it leads.
Mhm.
Um, and that's what was really frustrating to me. I really liked Olivia Colman.
Mhm.
The the stuff with the doll was peculiar, but I enjoyed trying to figure out what was going on in her mind in regards to it.
But again, you never really get to what it's all about. Um,
Right.
I want to admire this film for what it is, but on the other side, I'm thinking, okay, I'm left with something. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like I'm left wanting something more. But I admire it for what it is. It's a very frustrating film.
Mm-hmm.
I admire Maggie Gyllenhaal for not doing anything conventional
Oh yeah.
and not for her. This is her first directing job.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a weird thing. I looked at the cover of this and I saw that it was directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal, but I didn't really look at the picture. I thought that was her. I didn't realize that was Olivia Colman. I thought that was Maggie Gyllenhaal. A good effort. I'm just struggling with it.
I yeah, I'll back that up. And like I said, when it's nominated again,
Mhm.
I'll rewatch it
The
and
writing will be nominated.
probably yeah. The one I want to talk about briefly because I know you didn't see it yet. Um,
Mhm.
the Adam McKay uh, Don't Look Up with Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence and everybody else in
This is the
movies.
best picture sure shot.
This is the best. This is the worst Best Picture nominee that will inevitably be a Best Picture nominee.
Yeah,
I did not like this movie. Um,
because of the director and the gallery of stars.
exactly. Because for some reason Vice got nominated for a whole bunch of crap, and that wasn't good at all. And The Big
And won
Short,
nothing.
yeah, The Big
And The
Short
Big
was
Short, yeah.
good to mediocre, and that won the screenplay. So it will be nominated for stuff, but I really don't know why. Like, it's the whole thing, the asteroid, or not the asteroid, the comet that's coming to intersect with Earth. The way that they set up the struggle with it and everything, Meryl Streep basically plays a female version of Donald Trump,
Hmm.
and Jonah Hill is the this world's version of Don Jr. or Eric.
I hate
Mentally,
it already.
mentally Eric.
Yeah.
Um, they're not in it a lot, but they're in it enough to fuck things up.
Yeah.
And there ends up being this whole, people denying that this comet's even coming, and they're just like, just look up. You can see it from with your bare eyes now. And there
Mm.
was a whole thing of don't look up. That was President
Ah,
thinks
okay.
don't look up, so that
Hmm.
you don't get swayed by any kind of fake information that there's, ignore whatever they're saying, don't get real information. And one guy at one of the Don't Look Up rallies looks up and went, oh my God, there it is. Everybody looks at it. They're like, oh shit. um, they're going to blow it up or move it off of trajectory, but then Mark Rylance comes in and he's like a Steve Jobs with he kind of plays a combination of the BFG and his kindly spy from Bridge of Spies that he won his Oscar for.
Yeah.
So he's kind of like, he's definitely on the autism spectrum.
Hmm.
And he says there's hundreds of trillions of dollars worth of minerals and things that we need for our technology in that comet that's coming toward us.
Hmm.
If we can break it up so that it's not a massive impact, we can harvest all of that.
Hmm.
So then, of course, the plan becomes, don't stop it from hitting us. Try to mitigate. And it still winds up obliterated. I mean, it's just clunky. It's 2.5 hours. It doesn't need to be.
That's a strange thing this year. Everything had to be 2.5, 3 hours.
Like,
just...
the DiCaprio character makes decisions that don't make sense for his character when they happen, and then when he makes up for it at the end, it's negated by something his wife says anyway. So there was this whole subplot with him and Cate Blanchett that goes nowhere and then is completely negated. It's nullified. There's no reason for it at all.
We're going to end up talking about this because I know very well. I can pretty much tell you it's going to be nominated for Best Picture. We're going to end up talking about this in February.
Probably. You know what movie I do want to talk about?
What's that?
House of Gucci.
I don't know about you.
I loved this stupid, trashy movie.
I don't know about you, but I got the strange feeling that as far as the Oscars go, not that it matters, but I got the feeling that as far as the Oscars go, it seems to me that the vogue for this movie seems to have passed.
Yeah. Which is
unfortunate
because it is a very good movie.
I wasn't as enthusiastic about it as you, because I felt like I went into the movie thinking this is basically going to be Dallas, the TV show Dallas.
Yeah.
With French accents, or with Italian accents. And it wasn't.
No. My main worry going into it, because I'd only seen like one trailer, and none of the accents worked in any degree in the trailer at all. And I'm like, this is going to be very distracting. Adam Driver.
Let me tell you something. I love Adam Driver, but he cannot do an Italian accent to save his life.
I loved Jared Leto because he does not look like Jared Leto.
Uncle Paolo basically playing Fredo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically, here's the funny thing.
And
is that at the beginning
was it to give Al Pacino an Italian accent? That's as ridiculous as him trying to do. Did he try to do some kind of an Irish accent and something else? Like his later career since like 2016, 17 has just been about
the Screamy years.
The post Screamy years have all been about accents because he keeps taking on like Jewish people like he did in Hunters and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, so he gets to do the Yiddish and
try the Chicago accent and
the Irishman and Italian here, and there's some other nationality. It's like everybody who has seen Scarface knows that he does not do accents well at all.
No.
He's a magnificent actor.
Still.
He maintains, but he should not try accents. He does not have a voice for accents. It would be like Sly Stallone trying to do like something as a Frenchman. Like it just wouldn't work.
Yeah. Well, the problem I have with this movie is when they try to, at the very beginning of the movie, Lady Gaga, the character that Lady Gaga is playing, meets the character that Adam Driver is playing. It's been a while since I've seen this.
Me too.
So I don't remember their names. But they meet, and they're instantly attracted to each other. Mm-hmm. And they get... they're very passionate for one another. And they get married despite the father's insistence to the contrary, which, by the way, I love Jeremy Irons in this.
Oh, yeah.
It's this stone-cold, iron-willed man wealthy man who's like, no, you're going to marry the girl I want you to marry, not this commoner, because he doesn't like, because this her father owns a small trucking company, and he thinks that makes her beneath her son, but he marries her anyway. I felt for them.
Oh yeah.
I really did. I felt for the two of them. So much so that I had a little struggle. I had to struggle with what happens later, because she eventually hires somebody to kill him, and they
Well,
do.
after he's like openly cheating on her and just doesn't care, and then separates from her, and you know,
But I didn't feel the emotional weight of that, which I should have
I
felt,
kind of felt like the whole.
or I didn't feel the trashy vein that the movie should have.
Oh, I did. Um,
I didn't.
I
It felt wobbly to me.
I kind of felt like um, it was Goodfellas in high fashion. It was a mob movie without the mob,
Right.
and uh, I enjoyed the way that Ridley Scott used these American and British actors to be Italians, knowing full well that they did not sound Italian. Like
Mm-mm.
I don't think they were going for realistic accents.
I think that may have been one of my problems.
Um,
My other problem is the fact that Ridley Scott does not organize characters very well.
no,
He does not do
the
characters.
whole
He's
thing is a mess. I mean, it's just
It is a giant mess. That was the problem I had when I came to the end of it. I just felt kind of cold. I was like,
I
okay, it's
I enjoyed myself thoroughly with House of
mm,
Gucci. So I
yeah.
um do you want to do what? One more? Power of the Dog?
French Dispatch.
Ooh, I liked French Dispatch.
This is Wes Anderson.
Yes, it is.
Um, Doing a story that, I mean, this is the most Wes Anderson movie I've ever
Will
seen.
this finally win him an Oscar?
It will not.
I want it
Um,
to. Because he should have two by now. I don't know why he doesn't.
you like this more than I did.
Not really.
Um, because the problem with it for me is that it is uh, with his other films, The Royal Tenenbaums, Moonrise Kingdom. I come away with an overtone of something. I feel like I've been through something. Even Grand Budapest Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
All of these terrible characters have come in front of you, and it's all at the expense of this painting, this ridiculous painting
Mm-hmm.
that he's put together. Moonrise Kingdom, the overtone is this boy and girl who are just at the edge of puberty and just beginning to feel the first pangs of adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's what he does best. The problem with French Dispatch is it's just short stories. It's just when I was at the end of it, I didn't feel anything. I enjoyed what I saw. It's about this newspaper and three stories that are told within it, and I like the stories they told. But when I got to the end of the film, I expected to get that overriding feeling of what it was really trying to accomplish,
Well,
but I didn't get there. It
right.
just felt like he was putting stuff
I mean,
together.
at the beginning though, it starts off with the Bill Murray character, who's the publishing editor, his death, and
Yeah,
his stipulation that once he died, so did the paper,
yeah,
and so this kind of takes you back into the last issue
mm,
without them knowing it was going to be the last issue.
right.
So the stories that wind up getting told are kind of like different stages of life. I kind of felt. I don't know. I have to go back and rewatch it, but I liked the way that the stories that are being told kind of tells a story of where they were historically.
It feels very
This
French.
was, yeah. And I just
Art, freedom, and
yeah,
liberation.
I really enjoyed just the tone. I love Wes Anderson.
I do too. I do too.
I have been
Because you don't know where he's going to take you.
right. I've only been disappointed in two of his films, and
Yeah.
and even it like Life Aquatic and Darjeeling Limited. But I've rewatched them, and I am coming to different appreciations with them too. I just like his work.
Me too. I just didn't. I didn't. This one. It left me a little cold. I didn't. It didn't grab
I
me like
kind of
the other
felt that
ones.
way with a lot of things this year. Um, I wanted to feel more for Respect.
Oh, respect was respect.
Jennifer Hudson will get a nomination. I hope she
If you
does a
if you take all of
phenomenal.
the color off, if you take all of the color off the canvas, I guarantee you there are numbers there because this is
Oh,
as paint by
oh
numbers
yeah,
as you could
yeah,
get.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, it's
One
not.
movie I want to
Go ahead.
there's one movie I want to talk about before we head out, and that's Nightmare Alley. I love this
I did
movie.
too.
Oh my god, this is so great.
This is up near the
Because
top. I'm a
yeah,
huge fan of this one.
I told my wife, I said, "You're gonna love this," because it's as film noir as it can possibly get. Literally, the only thing I have to say about the movie that's negative is I wish it were in black and white.
I know, right?
Yeah, because I'm sitting there going, I feel like I'm watching an old movie,
Yeah.
and I
I
love
kind of wish
he has
Nightmare Alley had been in black and white and Belfast should have been in color.
yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Belfast probably meant more to Kenneth Branagh than it does to me, but I
me
mean,
too, and that's going to be another Best Picture nominee. Um,
I want to tell
I'm
you
sure.
something though. There's a line of dialogue in Nightmare Alley that I almost wanted to applaud. It's when Bradley Cooper tells Kate Blanchett, he said, "The only sure thing in life is dough, and it comes out raw." I was like, "That is brilliant." I was like, "That is brilliant."
There's some there's some top notch stuff in this. This is one of Guillermo's best. And
Yes, it is.
and
Yes,
it
it
is the
is.
first one that I can recall that doesn't have any kind of supernatural element to it.
I was gonna say that. I was gonna say that. That's very strange. It's very grounded.
Yeah.
And I was thinking because when I saw the trailer for it, I saw it on television, and I didn't know it was Guillermo del Toro, and I thought this was going to be something kind of like an anthology kind of thing or something that would just come out on Christmas
Or
Day and
like
be
Gangster
forgotten.
Squad or something that was just like
Gangster
you would
Squad or
just get to
something.
see the characters named for these gangsters shooting at people but not have a real story.
Yeah, it's all the violence but none of the subtlety.
Right, right.
Also another movie that I think is going to show up at the Oscars but will have no outcome is Passing.
Yeah.
You saw
Yeah.
this.
I
Eh,
was I was ambivalent towards this, and
I was cold toward it.
I wanted to like it a lot more.
I wanted to love it.
Yeah, me too. And it just it kind of fell
It's
flat
so
because
boring.
there's nothing interesting about these people
Yeah,
outside of one's passing for white and the other one sometimes does.
yeah,
Like I feel like there wasn't an emotional enough story,
no,
and
no,
all we really get is Tessa Thompson kind of just staring a lot.
yeah,
And I'll stare at Tessa Thompson until my eyes fall
yeah,
out of my head.
yeah.
But
I'll stare at Ruth Negga.
Yeah.
It's an interesting idea. It's just very, very slow.
And doesn't really go anywhere.
It doesn't really go anywhere. I don't mind I don't mind a film that's leisurely paced, but God, it just takes so long to get where it's going.
Right.
And it's so boring. And I was like, I'm just about halfway through it. My wife sat down on the couch and I was like, you know what, we can watch something else. I came back and watched the rest of it, but I was just like, I got to take a break. I need something with some juice to it.
Yeah.
It's something.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Yeah. You don't want to talk about Power of the Dog?
I guess we should talk about Power of the Dog since that's the best picture winner this year.
Probably will be.
I'm looking at my list and it's like right in the middle, and I forgot about it.
I really liked this. The end was very shocking, very surprising. Cody Smith-McPhee was wonderful. Everybody's talking about Benedict Cumberbatch, and Benedict Cumberbatch will be nominated for an Oscar. I hope Cody Smith-McPhee is. He gives a very understated and really, really dark, complex performance.
The mother, Kirsten is the one. Kirsten Dunst
very well win an Oscar for this.
She is phenomenal in this.
It's the best
she's the
thing
one I didn't expect. This movie, I saw it around Thanksgiving. It's how long it's been since I've seen this.
That's around when I saw it too.
But it's Jane Campion, and when I read negative reviews of this, I'm thinking you probably don't really know Jane Campion that well.
Right.
Because if you've seen The Piano or Portrait of a Lady or any of that stuff, or any of her, she doesn't have a long filmography, but it's phenomenal. You should see her first film, which is called Sweetie.
Yeah.
You know that she takes her time.
Yeah. And
she does not tell you everything. And this is the big one. But when I read that stuff, I'm like, yeah, you have to be in a certain mindset when you go into Jane Campion.
The only real quibble I have is that I'd say at least 50% of the time, they're not in Montana. They're in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Like, New Zealand does not pass for Montana very well. Other than that, everything is really top-notch in the movie. I think that's going to win. It's a hell of a movie.
If someone were to ask me what this movie was about, I'd be like, okay, it's 1925. Benedict Cumberbatch is gay, but he'd rather kill somebody than tell you that.
Right.
That's basically the movie. And he treats everybody around him like shit. Yeah. It's this interesting story of a guy who, through the power of his toxic masculinity, is able to keep everybody else in chains emotionally.
Everybody walks on pins and needles. And
yes, it's brilliant.
Yeah, and then when he starts befriending Cody Smith-McPhee, I'm like, I didn't trust it because I was convinced that something that he was just doing a long con and he was going to hurt him magnificently at the end of it. But as it got further along, and he got so upset about the hide not being there for him to continue making that rope for him, I'm like,
yeah,
this is genuine. He's actually trying to make a connection with this kid.
Right. But then...
Yeah, well...
we're going to talk about this in February, too, because it'll be nominated.
It's going to come up again.
One more. Can I talk about one more before we go? Sure. And that is the worst movie I saw last year. It is the 4-hour cut titled Zack Snyder's Justice League. Look, I have seen Holocaust documentaries that were more light on their feet. Okay? This movie was terrible. Wow. It's like somebody's therapy session. I'm like, God, lighten up.
It is a funeral dirge of a movie, but
for 4 hours.
I liked the expanded story. I think
Jesus.
the story is better than what we got with Joss Whedon's 2-hour job.
I didn't like that one either, but at least I was in it for 2 hours.
Yeah.
The problem with this movie is you're sitting there and you're going, somebody please tell a joke, throw a pie, something. Anything to lighten this.
By having the Flash
apart
there.
The clouds.
The Flash is a real bright spot in.
Well, not much for this movie, because everything else is just so. We're going to the funeral for a little boy and his puppy. I mean, that's how it feels. And for 4 hours, I sat there, and then there are 9 endings.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of the ultimate expression of a Zack Snyder superhero movie, which is not particularly super at all because he doesn't understand.
The ultimate expression of making me want to shoot myself. I'm sorry. I hated this movie. And now, but the good thing that came out of it is that it has spawned a petition to release the 4-hour version of Revenge of the Sith, which I don't think will ever happen, but I kind of want to see that.
I don't think that exists. Every first cut is like 6 hours long. That's just the rough assembly is always gigantic, and they have to pare it down. I'm gonna shoot in a couple of things that I know you haven't seen.
Okay.
That I want to bring up. Drive My Car, of course, was phenomenal.
3-hour Japanese.
Benedetta is a 2.5 hour.
I haven't seen that one yet.
It's weird. It's Paul Verhoeven trying to make Buñuel's Viridiana. But in the 16th century and way more violent. Like the thing that it's Benedetta, the story of a lesbian nun, I think is the title of the book that it's taken from.
Directed by the same man who directed Showgirls, RoboCop, and Starship Troopers.
Yep. But he does it in a way more reminiscent of Black Book from 2006, which is probably his best made film. If you haven't seen that, I highly recommend it.
It's been a while. My favorite film of his is still RoboCop.
This is reminiscent of Black Book and some of his early Dutch films, where they're dramas, but they're very violent dramas and very sexual in nature. And the other one was The Worst Person in the World. I enjoyed this thing. It's 4 years in the life of this 29, 30-year-old woman who really is just adrift in her life. She's always trying something new. She impulsively leaves long-term relationships. And it's just it's a good character study of somebody who hasn't quite gotten their character together yet. I really enjoyed it. That was in the Neon box.
I've got the Neon box. I'm actually gonna go through this
that one
at some point.
That one I really enjoyed. Also in there was the animated documentary Flea, which is in.
It's going to be nominated for
documentary and foreign language feature, and possibly even animated feature.
One film that you have not seen. And that's Encanto.
No, I haven't.
Which I believe will win the Oscar for Best Animated Feature.
Probably.
I believe that Disney's going to be competing with itself because Raya and the Last Dragon also came out this last year too.
It's going to be Encanto, Raya and the Last Dragon, and Luca, probably.
And possibly also that other Lin-Manuel Miranda movie that I didn't see called Vivo.
I didn't even know that existed until I got a screener for it.
Was the Mitchells versus the Machines is also out there?
I fucking loved that movie. Did you watch it?
Not yet. Man, I haven't seen it yet.
It is so much fun. That, seriously, one of the most fun... That might have been the funnest movie that wasn't Spider-Man that I saw all year. Mm-hmm. Mitchells versus the Machines was just a hell of a ride. I enjoyed that immensely.
Yeah, you were talking about a movie, at number one. I think Dune might have been my favorite movie of number one if it wasn't part one.
See, I loved Dune. I loved every minute of Dune. I want that.
It's everything I wanted it to be.
Exactly. And I want it to continue being that, and by which I mean I would really love to see Villeneuve finally win an Oscar. Because he's deserved one for the last, 6 or 7 years. And
do you think it can be nominated for Best Picture?
Absolutely.
You think it will?
Yeah, I do.
Because whenever it ended, as much as I absolutely adored it, was when it ended, it felt like the end of an episode of a Netflix show or something. Like I was watching a series, and it just.
Here's what I think is going to happen with Dune, and it's gonna upend what I was just saying my hope for it. My hope is that it wins Villeneuve something.
Yeah.
Realistically, I can see this being a repeat of the Lord of the Rings, and only going to be 2 parts. Then part 2 will be heavily awarded. If it's 3 parts, then part 3 will be heavily awarded, and all of them will be heavily nominated. They'll get technical stuff, but they'll heap the praises on whatever the last entry is, because
this is going to win the shit out of the technical awards this year.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and it deserves it deserves every single one of them.
As far as its basic ability to be, as far as its legacy in terms of like Lord of the Rings, it's crippled by the fact that most people did not see it in the theater.
Yeah,
it's crippled by the whole COVID thing. I had to see it at home.
So did I. I saw it twice actually.
I wanted to see it in the theater, but
me too. But
I didn't get out to see it. But I did see it on television, and I greatly admired it. I'm ready to see the whole thing.
Yeah.
I'm ready to see the next part of it. But I think I don't think it's going to have that. Because I don't know if you noticed, but did you notice every time that something came out at the theater, the next week they say, "Well, it dropped 75%."
Well, yeah, because people are only going opening weekend at this point because not many.
They're not going back
to the theaters right now,
and they're not going back.
Yeah, and people have to gear themselves up to get the courage to even go to the theater in the first place. They're not going to go back for a movie that they can go home and watch as soon as they get home from watching it in the theater.
I saw Black Widow in the theater. I saw the new James Bond.
I still have to watch that.
And I saw Spider-Man, and also because I couldn't miss the riff tracks. I saw the riff tracks on Amityville 4.
Oh, did you?
No, Amityville 4, which was about the demon lamp.
Oh.
I saw Hobgoblins.
Oh, you did go see Hobgoblins too?
Amityville 4 is about it's about the demon lamp. I mean, I love it.
It's riff tracks.
Anyway.
I think that's everything.
Yeah,
there's a lot. There's a lot. Documentaries that I wanna give a quick shout out to, specifically Roadrunner, which I think
yes, that's the last film on my list.
I think that will probably snag documentary
a nomination.
I think it might actually win the Oscar. I did see See, yesterday I watched both Pray Away and In the Same Breath. So I watched a really sad documentary about Pray Away the gay camps and a really sad
Yeah.
documentary about COVID. So,
Pray Away is really
yeah, it
good.
was. It was really good. In the Same Breath is on HBO
Yeah,
Max.
documentaries right now, it'll depend on whether or not, because most documentaries right now are either COVID or Black Lives Matter.
See, I was
So
looking at them and
you
I'm like,
kind of have
okay,
to.
the only movies I'm looking at here, the only things I'm seeing are COVID or, yeah, BLM or, um, like some sort of triumph over abuse. Like
Yeah.
Procession is about like triumphing over
Mhm.
being abused by priests, and there's another one that was yay happy, inspiring COVID documentary, which I still don't really understand how they made.
There's a terrific documentary that won't get nominated. It's called The Neutral Ground, which is about the removal of Confederate statues in New Orleans.
That's we didn't get a screener for that, did we?
No, it was a documentary that was on I think POV
Oh,
on
okay. So
PBS.
I'll still probably be able to
But
find
it's
that.
really, really good because it tries to come at the issue from both sides. It tries to understand both sides as the statues are being removed, about the perceptions
Mm-hmm.
about the Civil War from both pro and con. And I like that fair,
Yeah.
balancing act. It's not just bashing one side for
Right.
being wrong.
And see, the last doc I'm gonna say is the Sparks Brothers, which is an Edgar Wright documentary about a.
I didn't see this one.
This is. I had never heard of Sparks, which is it's a
Mm-hmm.
band that's been around since like the '60s or early '70s, late '60s, early
Mm-hmm.
'70s. They're like one of those bands that musicians know and love, and the public has never heard of.
Right.
And it is this quirky, I mean, it's Edgar Wright, documentary that is 2.5 hours long, and
Mm-hmm.
but it's so much fun. It's just
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun to sit through and watch and discover these guys, because the way that they made their songs and the songs that they do they're pretty good. I actually started looking into them after this, so
Mm-hmm.
I'll just drop that there.
There's so much more that we could bring up, but
But we're not
we got to
going
bring
to. Um,
we got to bring the train into the
yeah.
station.
Y-
I've enjoyed
yeah, me
this. I
too.
really have.
I always like these sum ups. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you can find all of our back episodes at the podbaydoorspodcast.wordpress.com. You can listen to us on iTunes and YouTube. Hit the like, subscribe, and notification buttons there. Follow us on Twitter and Patreon at pod_bay. Same handle on both sites. We thank you very much for joining us, and the pod bay doors are now closed.
The mission has been complete.